Welcome to this episode of What is Truth? And we're sitting here in nature again. It's a beautiful day out here. And Robert, how are you doing?
I'm well. And you?
I'm also well, thank you.
Good.
And today it's another special episode because we have a lovely couple next to us, all the way from the UK, Dana and Leslie.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you very much.
Good to be here with you.
Yeah, and it's a nice setting, as you mentioned.
Amazing.
Love it. And it's been a real pleasure having the two of you here at the Veith Centre, at the health centre. Have you enjoyed it here so far?
Very much, very much.
Luxurious. It's been amazing.
Great. And I know you guys, you're a lovely couple, and I know you have some interesting stories for us, and we can't wait to hear them. But I think let's start with prayer and do this right. Okay. Our Heavenly Father, I always enjoy these beautiful nature settings. You as Creator, Lord, thank you for everything that you do for us. And Lord, thank you for this opportunity to interview and have a discussion with Dana and Leslie. And we hope to hear interesting stories from their side as missionaries in this world, and they've been doing a great work for you, Lord, and I hope that will continue and that they will reach a lot of people. Lord, thank you, and bless this discussion and lead this discussion, and we pray it in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So you two being missionaries, what made you decide to become missionaries?
Well, for me, particularly, I loved hearing the stories of missionaries. And the first missionary that I heard about was a person called David Livingstone. And he captured my attention, and I thought it was very exciting in the things that he did. And it made such a big difference to the world we even live in now, and even to where we eventually would end up being at this present time in Africa.
And for me, I joined the church as a young person, about 9 years old, and I loved the mission stories. They were just amazing. They fired my imagination. They got me all on the edge of my pew, as it was then. And then I went on and pretty much focused my life on wanting to do that. I did my nursing because I wanted to be out in the field. So I believe that God put that calling on my life as a child.
So did you two meet before becoming missionaries, or was it a joint decision that you made?
We grew up in the same church together. I myself wasn't born into an Adventist family, but my uncle and auntie were Seventh-day Adventist. And I came to know Christ through them.
Yeah. And Les has this amazing memory for stories. And I can admit that he was my Sabbath school teacher at one point during the youth classes. And he would come out with the mission stories and the stories from the Reformation and all these stories. And they're just incredible. He's the one with the memory and the names and the dates. So I feel like I have permanent stories going on, and and God is just creating his own story through us for his glory now.
Where did you meet? In which country did you meet?
Well, we were born in the UK. And so we were brought up in Buckinghamshire. That's about 40 miles from London. And so we grew up in a little town called High Wycombe. And that's where we met each other.
But I think we have a very interesting history, because everybody looks at us and thinks, oh, they're Indian. But we actually probably know very little about India. Our foreparents came from India. They travelled across with the British to the Caribbean as servants. And then in time, they took on the landowners' surnames. And what was really amazing, our parents, as teenagers, went to England, as they were British colonies in the Caribbean. And as we have travelled, even in England, we've lived in places in England where our surname, or maybe their surname, have matched. So when we lived and were church planting in the southwest of England, there were a lot of people with the surname King, and our surname is King. Les's surname was King. So we assumed, oh, maybe the landowners were from down here. And then we got locked down in Wales, and there were a lot of surnames that were Thomas, and that was my maiden name. So in a funny way, it's like we've always felt quite comfortable and at home wherever we have travelled in the UK, because we've lived in different parts of the UK. But we have this history now, and I believe we all carry hereditary tendencies from wherever we've come from. So there must be elements of Indian culture within us that sort of mould us still, and that the Lord needs to deliver us, other things that the Lord needs to deliver us from as well. So it's amazing how, and we're now left with only English. So we don't have any of these other languages that we take with us. And we're very privileged, really, because we're spoiled, actually, because everybody speaks English.
Yeah, universal language.
Yeah, indeed. So what moment, you both liked the mission stories and you wanted to become missionaries. So what moment or at what time did you make that decision, saying, now we're going to do this, now we're going out to be missionaries?
Well, after Dana and myself got married, and she's always told me from the beginning she wants to do mission, she wants to go to a foreign country. And we spoke together after we had our first daughter. She was about 2 years old, and we decided, we're going to give the Lord 5 years. And we'll see what the Lord does during that time. And by the time 5 years came, we had a second daughter, and Dana and myself had made up our mind to go into an unentered part of the UK where there was no Seventh-day Adventist presence. And we started to minister among the people. And that's really where we got our training and was able to just meet with other people. No other Adventist or, other helpers around us. So we had to learn to be able to meet people where they were.
And I'm sure doing the missionary work, there's a lot of sacrifices. Okay, so what did you need to sacrifice at that time? I mean, your children, how old are they at the moment? When did you leave to go do missionary work, and what about the children?
We have a very strongly knit family, and we were all pretty much based in the Buckinghamshire area. But I think there was this sense of adventure within us. And as much as I know I was yearning to sort of spread my wings and go overseas, our children were young. They were 5 and 3 at the time. And it was literally 5 years after, because we'd said to the Lord, we're going to give you 5 years. And it was 5 years down the road that this opportunity came up. And it wasn't me that the Lord sort of rest that calling upon. It was Les that said, I think we need to apply for this. So that was special to me, to know that it was Les that had felt that calling. And we went into the office, but for us, it was still in the UK. It wasn't far from family. It's about 2.5 hours away from where we were, past London, going south. And unfortunately, the Adventist presence had dwindled, really. And we were going alone. So in one way, to not have a team behind you is a sacrifice. Not having anybody else to really call on in that community was a level of sacrifice. And I think looking back, the sacrifice was also for our children, because they no longer had a Sabbath school class and a group of peers that believed the same as them. They were very much now alone. And I think that's hindsight. at the time we were young and we were eager to spread our wings and do something different and to see how the Lord would lead. But I don't think we saw any of it as a sacrifice. We had luxuries compared to what we're living in, we have lived in.
Yeah.
But I think your original question was also about missions. That was our first step towards missions. But I think there were previous steps that we had made in those 5 years, because our Sabbath school got built up in those 5 years. That's mission within the church. And we're all called to be missionaries. And I think sometimes we forget that. We are baptized and we are instantly enlisted into mission work as individuals. We're representing and we're ambassadors for the kingdom. So I think our mission work started in the church. Those 5 years, a lot of different things happened, and this was our first step out of a comfort zone.
Yeah, God allows you to, take small steps.
Yes.
At first, it didn't just, like Abraham, he didn't just rip you out of there and throw you in the middle of Africa right away.
No.
Yeah, okay.
So what was the next step? You were at church planting in England, and then what was next?
The next step was a big step. Our children grew up in the south of England, and our daughter went on a gap year to Cambodia. It had been recommended by a friend of ours as a place where it's quite a homely setting, and it would suit her. And off she went before we went. She went to a foreign place under the umbrella of missions before we did. And it impacted her in a huge way. And she went as a 17-year-old because she was quite young in her years. And not many organisations will take 17-year-olds. So when she came back, she was very fired up. And she was also motivated to return. And, she was challenged and she said, yes, if I raise this money, I'm going to pay for that ticket and I'm going back. And we said, okay, that's the test. So that's exactly what she did. And she's a very determined young lady, and off she went again. But what the stories that she brought back, the stories of the gospel has not even touched parts of the world. We hadn't really considered any of that. And we started to, I think just before she came back while she was away, we started to do some research about, well, how is the gospel really doing? How is the Advent message really doing in other parts of the world? And I think that's where, our eyes started to open, and then to hear her first-hand stories, of, all the stories you hear from the mission story, sort of devil possession, and this is going on, and this is happening, and all these stories, hair-raising stories. We were like, wow, okay, this world is still very much real and unmet.
Yeah.
And that struck us. And I think at that point, I think God had prepared us. We were ready to let go of everything and to go self-supporting.
Wow.
So we made some huge steps. How was it for you?
The first step that we made, it was an act of faith to be able to move from where we were in Buckinghamshire to the southwest of England. But this step that we were going to take was even greater. Yeah. Because we're not going to be even on the island. We're going to be far away in an unknown culture and not knowing what we're going to have ourselves, plunged into, as it were. So Cambodia was it for us at that moment in time because our oldest daughter had gone there.
Yeah. But we had steps there too, because we first of all joined a very organised NGO there, and that was with Tim and Wendy Maddox, very known for being in Cambodia. We're there many years. I better not start telling their story too. I mean, their story is amazing. So we started off in an orphanage in a school. And it was wonderful because the school was very much operated by foreigners that came in from all around the world and were teaching high school. which was really, really amazing, of which our children, and when we went, our younger daughter went with us too. But there was a little interlude, because before we decided to completely sell up and go, our younger daughter went back with our older daughter. So they both...
They went back to England.
It went back to Cambodia, or went to Cambodia, because
Yes.
Gemma, our younger daughter, hadn't been. So they still arrived there before we had. But having done that themselves, they were prepared for us all to go. So really, the Lord had done some amazing things in all of our hearts. So we went actually together, we did some training. I knew that from Sarah's stories, we couldn't trust medical care or the medical system. You can buy results that you would like.
Yeah.
So we went and did our medical missionary training as a family in America at UK-Pines. And that was a furnace of its own. I think once you really start seeking God's plan and purpose and the reforms that He's privileged us with, you know, the temperature goes up in this great controversy. And it really did, very much so. So we did this training and we arrived in the orphanage. We were there about 3.5 years. And then we took some bigger steps to the middle of nowhere. And then we returned, and then we did a further step. So we stayed in 3 different places in Cambodia, and every place was individual and incrementally more challenging. And I think that's a testimony as to how God grows us.
And he and he develops your faith through these tests. You know, as you said, you all brought together, and that's how you develop your faith, is by knowing that He's there and that He's helping us in everything that we do. And those two different areas in Cambodia, what was your mission there? What did you do, and what challenges did you face further?
After we'd been in the school and orphanage for 3.5 years, we moved to a completely unentered area, as it were, again, but this time we're in the community. So where we were, it was in a place called Siem Reap, and that's where all the tourists came when they came to Cambodia. But for us, we were going into a place now where we were surrounded by the actual people in the villages. And they didn't know city life. All they knew was the life that they had grown up in. And so we were going to now find out what Cambodia really was like.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the culture and the religion.
And so on.
Yeah.
And when we got to a place called Kompong Tom, you know, you can hear all the sounds around you because they've got the loudspeakers, and they're sharing, whether it's a wedding, a funeral, a festival, whatever it is. You can have these different things just contrasting with one another, and all of them speaking so loudly and bringing over the loudspeakers, their music and so on. So it sounded chaotic.
Yeah. What do they believe in? I mean, what is their culture in Cambodia?
Well, they've got a kind of Buddhist,
Okay.
animistic,
Mix.
also Indian mix in there as well, culture, because the Indians had come across.
Hindu.
Yeah, so it was a kind of mix. Yeah. So their understanding of the world was totally different than ours.
Yes.
So we're really learning to be able to work cross-culturally with these people.
So how did you get the gospel across? How did you evangelize between them, knowing that they have these different beliefs and religions? How did you bring Christianity and Jesus to them?
Well, I remember when we first entered into the village, they had their houses on stilts. And under the houses, you had the cows, you had the ducks, you had the chickens, you had the dogs. and you walked up these kind of steep steps to get into the house, and you look at the floorboards, and all these holes are inside of the floorboards and so on.
It's clever.
But that's where we stayed for a few nights in amongst them.
Yeah.
And you can imagine the smell, the sounds and everything, because it's hot, it's heated, it's humid, you know, where we were.
So being in a Noah's Ark.
Yes, we were, yeah. But with slats.
So when we actually moved there, we decided we didn't want to stay inside of the village itself, but to move to a part of the surrounding area that they called the forest, although the trees had mainly been cut down. But they didn't want to go there because it was part of what they called the killing fields.
Yes.
And they were afraid of the spirits because their ancestors had died during Pol Pot's time, you know, with the war there. So they didn't want to go and live there. So we went and lived there.
And that became the testimony.
Yes. So we went there. They were frightened to go there, and they couldn't understand why foreigners would want to come and stay in the middle of nowhere. And we were living in a tent.
Yes, we were.
Yeah. So we started off, we had to make a well.
Dig a well.
So we dug a well. We had people come in from the village to start off a building, again on stilts.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was familiar to them.
Yeah.
We just made a kind of makeshift kind of kitchen to operate from, lived in the tent, and was watching these local people put up this structure.
Yes.
But to even get the wood and all that for that structure, to get that out into the middle of nowhere was another story, because they were so afraid of the spirits that when they started along with the truck with all the wood and all that inside of it, and they got towards the evening and they saw the road was rough and it was getting dark, they dropped off all the wood in the middle of a field, and wouldn't go in any further.
It's too dark.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a good place to be.
So we had to then literally guard the wood overnight, and then in the morning early bring all the wood to where we were.
Yeah.
And that happened with the bricks and the cement and
the
all
tiles,
the tiles
everything.
and all the different things that we needed to be able to build the structure, because we thought we were going to enclose the downstairs pit, the lower part, with bricks, concrete the floor,
Under the stilts. Under the stilts.
and rather than tin on the roof, we put actual tiles on the roof.
Okay.
So you can imagine the village people are looking at us as if to say, you're crazy. Why are you putting a building in the middle of nowhere?
Why would you want to do that?
And in this area where the spirits...
Where all the spirits are. And we had 100 fairy lights, you know, the sort of solar lights that we'd put on a Christmas tree. And we strung them up because, of course, we had no light.
No electricity.
No electricity, no water, no running water, no sanitation, nothing. You know, even for sanitation, we just had our spades in the morning and off we went. So it was absolutely basic. But I think the key point here is that everything you do as a foreigner and somebody new in a community, there are eyes and ears everywhere. And they are telling it to each other, they are laughing, we're their local entertainment, and that's all fine. And they are seeing different ways of living. Everything we do was a testimony of something they had never seen before. You know, everything. And everything we were seeing, because we were having to learn some of the culture, how they relate to each other, how they're going to relate to us, once the initial fear was over. That we were learning about their culture on the ground with them and vice versa. So I think we were all in that learning process of learning to live with each other and understand each other. But I think they must have been petrified. The thought that we were living out there with the spirits and every single solar light was an evil spirit.
Wow.
So they were so afraid. And there was a man that came down
from the mountain.
Yes.
So there's not many. Cambodia's flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where we were, there was one big hill.
Yeah.
But they call those mountains. So this man was living up in the mountain, and he came down into our tents, and you can see he wasn't all there.
Yeah.
You know? But amazingly, he didn't do anything to us. He didn't hurt us. But the village people took him away because he had gone out of his mind.
Yeah.
And he was possessed by evil spirits.
Sounds like the Legion.
You know?
Yeah, the person
The
possessed.
person possessed.
Yeah. So, but we realized God was protecting us
Yes.
while we were there in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And
when we were living in the tents, there were snakes all around us. There were scorpions everywhere, because actually it was when we moved into the house that we really saw the snakes. And we even had bites between us of scorpions.
Oh.
But while we had made that initial step of faith and we were in our tents, we were fine. It was like we had a level of confidence, or just knew that God had put us there, he would protect us. And we were in the tents about 4 months.
That's why they had the stilts.
That's why they had the stilts. But it was amazing, because I remember within some of the first few days that there were groups of people coming in just to see us, because the foreigners are in the forest and they're sleeping there at night, and they come in to see what's going on, and just hearing a different language made them a little bit nervous, and not everybody would come all the way in to greet us. And as much as we're sort of quite extrovert, would go out and meet somebody, we didn't want to frighten them either. So we were sort of gauged, do we go, do we not go, how far are they coming? And they would hear the language, but then they would come another time with others that got closer. And, you know, it was just progressive. We were really having to come to an understanding of each other.
And it almost sounds like Paul. Hey, Paul had to go out to the Gentiles, and they had all these different belief systems and different religions, and this almost looks like the perfect platform to testify. And my question basically is, where did you start? I mean, how did you? Obviously, you had to provide them with the lesson of the state of the dead, I'm guessing. You know? So how did you what did you do? How did this originate?
Well, you know, because we were there, we were able to tell, you know, some basic Bible stories. And I remember telling the story of Jesus turning the water into wine, and explaining to them that Mary told the servants, whatever he says to you, do it. And then I was sharing with them these stories, and I was saying, you know, when you allow Jesus into your heart, into your life, when you hear him speaking to you, whatever he says to you, do it, you know. And different stories from the Bible about those who were sick and how God healed them and so on. So it was just stories. Yes. There was no doctrines or anything like that. It was just basic stories.
Parables. That's how Jesus taught, through parables.
They saw that our lives were totally different. Different because we had structure to our lives. We had order. We had things that how we saw things and understood things, which was different to them. So we would put up washing lines, you know. We had dogs. We would bath our dogs, you know, and different things like that. And by putting the washing line up and hanging our clothes out and different things like that, and putting water into the house, and all these different things, leaving the animals away from the house, not in the house, or all of these were seeds that were being sown.
But I think the Lord opened opportunities. For example, you gave the example of the state of the dead, which is a great one when you think about evil spirits. But even before we had moved to out into the middle of nowhere, there was a situation where a neighbour in the village was troubled by evil spirits, and they'd actually asked us to come in, and they explained how they were being disturbed in the night and what was actually happening. and Les had gone in, so maybe you can share that story as to what happened. So I see that God opens the opportunity. He directs what you need to bring. You know, we haven't got a list of, okay, let's tick that off. The next one is this one on the list. He navigates you through what they need, so you share what they most need to hear.
And throughout that whole thing, you still live by example.
Yes.
What is written in the Bible, you do, and that attracts people. And like you said, you go wherever God leads you and open the doors.
Yeah, that's where the subject was. So
Yeah, for this
state of the dead is a big issue.
Yeah. For this particular story, we'd gone into the village. We were speaking to a lady who said that her daughter is being troubled by evil spirits. Is there something we can do? I said, well, we will come. So if your husband is happy for us to come. Yeah. So you've got to speak to your family and speak to your husband and see if we can come. So she came later on and said, yes, come. So we went up into their little stilted house. There's not a lot in there, but up there you can see their little
shelf with a shrine.
With little shrine on there. And we spoke to them about Jesus and said that he is able to look after you and protect you. Are you willing to have Jesus watch over you and take care of you? He will help your daughter. And you know, after we had shared together a little, I shared some stories from the Bible, simple stories again, and then they willingly, I thought they would just take off the things off the shelf that was there. They took the whole shelf off.
Wow.
They went
Amazing.
outside and they put everything down on a ground where they would usually burn things.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I then said to them, you know, are you happy to do this? I want you to feel that you have to do this.
Yeah, did they
Very
believe
much
Do you-
their
yes.
that
choice.
Jesus is...
Yes, is able to help you.
Yeah.
But it surprised me because they went even further than that, because they wear a rope around them that ties, that's supposed to ward off the evil spirits from them. I wasn't even aware of it. Yeah? I wasn't even aware of that, and they cut this rope that was around them that was supposed to ward off the evil spirits, and they also put it there, and then we took a match and we burnt everything and we prayed with the family. And from that moment, they weren't troubled by any evil spirits. And that's what they told us. And all we can say is that God had to have done that, because it's nothing we've done. It's nothing at all that we've done.
We're
It's just
open
that
to
we
it.
believed that God is more powerful. Yeah?
Yeah. They still have, they still have a choice. You know,
Yes.
and they opened the door. Jesus was there,
Exactly.
say, I'm here, I can help you. And they said, come in.
Yeah, and that's what has always amazed me in the foreign mission field. Their level of faith is far beyond anything that I think we even possess. Because it's like, yes, it may seem like a big faith to move, but their faith and the healing we've seen in, you know, spirits leaving and different lives that they've taken on has been astounding to us. We sort of step back and say, it's not what I did. This has got to be God. This is bigger than us. Their faith is incredible. You know, even where we are now, I'm astounded. I would do the same thing for somebody in England or somewhere else, and I may have to do it 3-4 times. For them, it's like they've done it once, and I'm thinking, that's it? God, you're just amazing. And because we're still sort of trying to communicate to each other, I just lift my hands up, and they're just like, yes. Thank you, God. We can give him glory together.
Wow. And it shows how in need people are of a savior in the world and how important this work is. But that instance, it's such an amazing story. But what did it do to your faith in God?
Well, the funny thing is, I always had a peace there. I believe that God put that peace upon me because I was not afraid. You know, even with all that was going on, with all the bombarding sounds and noises and everything, I wasn't afraid because I believed that God was with us and he had actually sent us there. But what I saw in the culture was so different because they were willing to curse each other.
Yeah.
Their children, I mean, a tragic story is that where we were, there's a man-made canal, you know, and mother was busy working, left the child there, and of course the child fell in the canal and drowned. And we were thinking to ourselves, but don't you know that that's most probably what would happen? But they didn't think that way, you know? Their thinking was different.
Yes.
And where we were also, they had set up all along the road places where they would carve their Buddhas and different shrines and so on. So it was like taking me back to the Bible time when Isaiah spoke and Jeremiah spoke about, you know, making the stones into these gods and then these idols and worshipping them. We actually were literally seeing it.
Yes.
Actually seeing it.
Yes, because literally on the motorbike, 15, 20 minutes down the road, these huge rocks, I mean, and it's not really a mountain, we call it Santuk Mountains, but these huge rocks came down as rocks. And, you know, without any consultation to their picture, they were there just chiseling these humongous Buddhas and these shrines and these different things. And it was like, wow, I have never seen anything like this. I can't believe this still exists.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
what I'm thinking. I don't even know it exists. It's ancient.
That's right. But there it was, and I'd be thinking, but surely they're realizing this is stone. They're not feeling anything. This is not a God that can hear or can see or anything. But then they would paint it in the most colourful colours, bright colours, yellows and oranges and blues and things, and say a prayer. And the next thing you'd see, it would be at the top of a mountain. It would be in a pagoda. And people were making little altars and offering their food and bowing down and bringing their incense and all these different things.
Sure.
And somehow it got turned from stone to something seeing and hearing. And I can tell you a different story, but this was in the third place we lived. The third place we lived was on an island called Fish Island in the Kampot area. And this wasn't Buddhist. This was a Muslim territory. So we were not awakened with the drums 4 a.m. We were awakened to the call to worship. Completely different area and mindset. And we were cross-culturally teaching. We were teaching a young boy who was partly Khmer, Cambodian, and his father was Australian. So we were teaching English, and we had gone to we were teaching them in their home, but their neighbour was Chinese. So we'd gone round to the neighbour's house, and the neighbour had this humongous Buddha. You know, just like the one that had been built where we were. And he had the biggest smile, and he was just amazing. And this little boy, this boy that I was teaching, he was 6, 7 years old. He started to climb on this Buddha. And I was like, oh, you know, I was really like, you shouldn't be climbing on their God. This is not a good thing. But he had climbed up onto this Buddha, and he was sitting on his shoulders, and I come down. And the owner of the house, a Chinese man, he just smiled, just like the Buddha was smiling, and the father was there, and I was thinking, I hope we haven't offended him. I really hope we have not offended this man, because this was his God. But he was not fazed one little bit. So we left the house, we went back next door to their home, and I continued teaching. I was teaching English, but of course I had my nice big puzzle books of Bible stories, and you'd take the pieces out and put them back in to make the Bible story. And I had no doubt which Bible story I had today. I had to do Elijah. And I told the story of Elijah, and I said to this little boy, I said to him, there's look at this pot. You've got this lovely flower in there. Do you think that pot's alive? What's it made of? And he said, well, it's made of stone. And do you think if I sit down and speak to that pot that it could hear me? And he said, no. He just started to laugh. And I said, well, Elijah's God, which is my God and your creator, he is real. He can hear us, he can see us, he can answer our prayers, he's right here with us. And I said, you know, I explained how real our God is, present tense, right here and now. And then I went on to explain, you know, a God is somebody that is big and powerful. Do you think a God could be made of stone? And he just naturally just laughed. And I could see, without saying anything more, he understood.
Yeah.
He understood that when we're praying to our God, he needs to be able to hear. He needs to be real. He needs to be able to respond and interact in our lives. And as I had said before, God opens the opportunities. He knows when somebody is ready for the next step in their faith. And nobody, I don't think, logically goes through exactly the same journey. We have to let God navigate us.
He meets us where we are.
Yeah, exactly. And he says some advanced things to one and simple things to others. And you think, oh, okay, I would have done this the other way around.
Yeah.
But, you know, the woman at the well, he revealed the greatest truth. I'm the Messiah. And none of us would have imagined it was her. So really, we very much believe that God navigates the whole journey for whoever we're with. It's important that we're just open to be that channel to present it. And when the Spirit nudges you, you know, and says, okay, I think it's time for this or time for that, we've got to be prepared to just say what we need to say.
It's ensconced in the sanctuary message. That's what it is. You know, he uses us through prayer. He uses us to be the light of the world and gives us the knowledge to do so. Yeah.
And I think also in some of these cultures, it's the women that are not valued. It's the children that are not valued. And it was the same in Jesus' day.
Yeah.
But these are the ones he's revealing the truths to and that he's using. Because this little boy had a younger sister and he would tell her. And the mother of these children was very Khmer. And she had specific cultures, parts of her culture that was being challenged when I was there. Actually, and this was just before COVID. This was the last place we were. And I think the father had set me up, to be completely honest, because they traditionally feed their children rice soup. And it's the same spoon. So it's one for you, one for you, one for you, you know. And he's a 6-year-old boy and the younger girl is only 3. Now, we would never have imagined that. And of course, Dad, who's Australian, was like, oh, what's going on here? I was hoping that he would be feeding himself independently by now. And he wasn't, because culture had held them. And this particular day, I felt I was set up. I was left with the bowl of rice soup with 2 spoons, 1 bowl and 2 children. And I was like, I can't do this. You know, you need your own and you nurture independence.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was this was the first time I was going to see how strong culture holds you. Because I said to this boy, go on, go get another spoon. And while you're there, bring a bowl. Because my plan was to divide it and they both have a spoon and we can sit together and I can tell you a story while you're eating. No, he wouldn't go. He just sat and watched me and I thought, I am not starting to feed them. I was in one of those stubborn moods. No, a line is drawn. Something has to change here. But it was a 3-year-old. She was the one that leapt off of her chair, went and got the extra spoon and the extra bowl. She wasn't fussed one little bit, but it was the 6-year-old who I was able to reason with, you know, this is a God and this is not a God. He wouldn't let go of this hold.
Yeah.
He really wanted me to feed him with the same spoon. Anyway, I divided the porridge between them. The 3-year-old was, you know, quickly doing her thing, and he just sat there and watched me. It was almost like he was still wanting me to feed him. And
It was ingrained in him.
Yes.
It was. It had
Even at that young
really
age.
Yeah.
baffled me. I really thought he would be the one that would understand. But no, and I started to reason with him. I said, well, look, your sister's doing it. I think you're able to do it. But, you know, there were other things going on and you can see it. And he started to say, why? Why can't you feed me? And I said, well, because you're growing. But not just that, you both need your own spoon. And when we eat together, we can all sit and eat together. And we've all, you know, your sister needs less food than you do. So you need a bit more and she needs less. And we're just going through these conversations. He did finally take a couple mouthfuls, but I can see he was not comfortable.
Sure.
You know, there was something holding him back. We were now preparing to go and I was feeling I had been set up. But anyway, we were now leaving and it turned out to be one of the last times we were going to be with this family. And we got on our trike. They had converted a motorcycle with 2 wheels at the back so that we would be comfortable on this bike, because we're not good on motorbikes. So they, you know, it was amazing what they did for us. And we were leaving and he got on his bicycle, he cycled down, opened the gate, but he had more questions. And he wanted to know, so should I feed myself all the time? Should I feed myself? And all of these questions were coming out. And I just gave him little nuggets, just tiny little things to think about. And I said, and I'll tell you more next time, and I'll bring some things and we'll do some colouring and I'll show you how some of this works. I think we only had 1 more or 2 more sessions with them. And we went home. We were called home. Mm-hmm. And then COVID struck. And they were on WhatsApp, on a WhatsApp group. And I remember,
It must have been a tough time
yes.
in COVID. There's a real danger in holding on to culture, hey? Because, I mean, it is in our culture to do this, to exercise polygamy or whatever, you know, but there's actually just one truth. You know, and you can't spread it across cultures and say, but that's okay for them, that's okay for them, dress-wise and this-wise. You have to be careful when it comes to culture. Yeah,
and I think that really now pertains to where we are now. Because we're now in Tanzania, we're in Maasai land, and we are so privileged. And I just can't believe, really, that we would have an opportunity to minister to these very unique and special people. And everybody we've ministered to, everybody is so special. But you just touched on polygamy there. And this is a culture where they have probably maybe 2 to 3 wives, but we've heard the stories of 7 to 8 wives.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a whole different world. And they, particularly where we are in Tanzania, they have very much preserved their culture. And yeah, it's challenged us even more. I think you've got a question there.
Yeah, I just wanted to, sorry, you had one first.
No, you can go.
I wanted to find out from Cambodia to Tanzania. Come on, how did that happen?
Yes, well, basically, as Dana said, we had gone back home just before, we had gone back to the UK just before COVID came in, and then we had the lockdown. So when we had gone back to the UK, thinking we're going to be there just a few weeks, and then we'll go back to Cambodia, instead of that happening, we were locked down in the UK. And even while we were in the UK, we're thinking, well, where can we go? Because we can't afford to be able to rent where we were in the Buckinghamshire area. So in the end, we ended up in Wales. And we got locked down in Wales for about 3.5 years in Wales.
It was great. Beautiful place. Perfect
so
place to be
we were there,
down.
but while we were there, then we were able to meet other people again. And although we were not out in the foreign fields as such, we had started to work amongst the children and and the people that were there, and started a little branch Sabbath school where we were. And we would go in, because there was no churches there, and meet with the Baptists on a Sunday.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, because all the other churches had closed down because of COVID. There was nothing around. So we would meet with them, and we became friendly with them until the point that they would ask us to speak and to share with them on Sundays in their services. So that
Brilliant.
became an opportunity for us
Yes.
again. And then we had this call in. We had this sense that we had to move on from where we were. And then we found out about Tanzania.
Yes.
And that was another story in itself, how we came to end up in Tanzania.
Yeah.
But before we left Wales, we spoke to the president of the mission there, who took over, going to speak to the people on the Sundays and sharing with them the gospel.
But you know what was wonderful about being in Wales? It was like an imposed sabbatical in some ways. You got to rest. Let's give you a bit of comfort. You know, the running water, the flushing toilets, the sanitation.
Get
This
back
was
to
like an absolute luxury to be locked down in Wales. But you know, we were with family. We were with our Reformation Protestant family. And we felt we were with family. We were with people with like minds to a degree. And what was incredible in this particular chapel was that because all the other chapels had closed, there were Methodists there were Baptists there were Presbyterians, Church of England, that we were all together in this one Protestant church that was left in this village. And the hymns were wonderful. It was just beyond what we could imagine. We appreciated them beyond what we thought we would, because we'd been away for 8 years.
Yeah.
And God just nourished our hearts, and they were really family. They were family, and they loved us beyond anything we could imagine. And they were all 80 plus, except for one maybe. And it was wonderful. We just loved being there, and they still connect with us and us with them, and we love them to bits because they really looked after us.
Yeah.
They
And
took
then
us in.
And then, as Leslie said, it opened the door for you to give all of these different denominations the truth.
Yes.
To talk to them and tell them about why the Reformation started, basically.
Yes.
And the thing is, during that time, the Queen had died.
Yes.
And a new king was being put into place and so on. This all gave us opportunity to share with them on a level that they could understand, you know, and it knitted our hearts together.
Yes.
You know, and they were open to us and open to what we were sharing.
And I think love just goes all the way. You know, there was common ground. The church there was dwindling and dying, and to have young people come in, we were classed as young, amongst them, and be amongst them was really wonderful. And there was just this togetherness that I can't imagine. I didn't even feel like I was reaching them as if they were a mission field. To me, they were family, and we were sharing our lives. I guess we call it friendship evangelism.
Yeah.
It's, you know, they were not subjects or projects or anything.
No, that didn't even enter into our minds.
They were our
was
family.
It just was natural. It was just one thing built from one thing to the next. It just naturally happened.
There's no judgment,
No.
judgment between the different.
Exactly. We just
types.
shared.
Yeah.
And I think because we were in this together, this COVID situation together, you know, it banded our hearts together.
Yes.
And we were more open to one another. And it
And
was...
accepting.
Yeah. Were they open to, biblical truth that you shared with them at that stage?
Well,
were there any
yes.
conversions? Well, I'm talking about Cambodia as well. We didn't, were there any baptisms that you witnessed there, or any conversions to Jesus?
Let's go to Cambodia.
Yeah.
With Cambodia, what I saw that there, I had the opportunity to be able to share with little churches that had been started by, kind of church planters there. And I was able to share and to speak in amongst those people. And yes, I did see some baptisms where we were in Siem Reap, but not
Beautiful.
specifically in the area we had moved
Yes.
to. But what we had done was be able to give them Bible stories that they had never heard before.
start
Give them a different way of
foundation.
thinking
Start
that
spreading.
they had
Yes.
never seen before, and doing things that, it was totally different for them.
Yes.
So this was our opening
Yes.
for them. And we saw they had moved the animals out from under the house.
Yeah.
you
We
see.
saw
Yeah.
washing lines
They put
go
washing
up.
lines up. Where we had put solar panels on our house, they put solar panels on. All of a sudden, there was these changes that were happening to them.
Mindset change.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's change. It's progressive. And also in the mission field, you're talking about complete heathenism, a completely different mindset. So you are really having to allow them to see it and take it in and ask questions. And we're also in a culture of where yes means I hear you, not necessarily I understand you, or even necessarily I agree with you. Yes means it's gone through.
I hear what you're saying.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. And the emphasis can so much be on baptism, but their level of faith may have been so deep for what they have come from too, and be seen as righteousness that they be accepted into the kingdom. We tend to have these different measurements. We need different measurements as to people's level of understanding and conversion. Because where we are, we've met many who have said they are Christians, Adventist Christians, and we've lived amongst them, and I'm baffled as to what they actually believe.
Agreed.
And and they've been baptized and ticked all the boxes of belief, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
While there are others that have done the simplest thing, and I thought, wow, that is faith that I didn't expect, like in the centurion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And planting seeds
Yeah.
is all they need sometimes.
It's all in
you know?
that seed.
You can preach for 3.5 years to the Jews who had all the knowledge, who had the Torah, who had everything,
And
but
missed it.
So now you're coming back to Wales. So I just talked about Cambodia, but coming back to Wales,
And now
you know,
on to...
we had started this little group, and we started a WhatsApp group with them to share with them what's happening to us
Now in Tanzania. So they're still
So even though
journeying
we've
with
left
us.
the country, we haven't left their hearts.
No, very much. They're still
You know,
family.
they're still
Nice.
family,
Yeah.
and we still have a relationship. And it's the same with Cambodia. Even though we left Kampot Island, Fish Island and Kampot, we still communicate with the Australian Khmer families that are there.
And going back to where we were in the UK,
Yeah.
where we were church planting. You know, we had our home originally there where our children grew up. We still have correspondence with them because we're all still on this journey together holding hands.
Yeah.
You know, and they contact you because it's amazing. The moment somebody, I remember one friend that goes all the way back to where we were in the southwest, her mother died. And the first person that she felt to contact all these years later, and even though we hadn't been in contact regularly, was, I need to let you know this is what's happened. This is the loss in my life. And she was comfortable to contact us. And it was like nothing had separated us. We just instantly picked back up where we were. And you nurture and feed and you empathise and you love.
So important to have those relationships and not always expecting perfect, you know, acceptance of doctrines, but actually just planting those seeds and being there for them, hey? And just being an example for them.
I think...
Yes, no, sorry, continue.
No, I was just going to say, I think that on your journey in life, you have different puzzle pieces that come in, different people and circumstances and providences that interact in your life that God is using to draw you closer and closer to Him, you know? And I believe that God uses these things to bring a person to Christ in a crisis.
That's it.
Biggest decision
Exactly.
in a
Yeah.
crisis.
Because you had a friendship with them, they were able to open up to you, or some seed was planted in them that would later become
Exactly.
prominent.
Yeah.
When
You
things
know?
start happening in this world, they will realize, but wait, I want to speak to these two.
Yeah.
They said this and that. Let's hear them out.
Yeah.
So this is the way we have viewed things and seen things happen. So it's not necessarily we're going and saying, you know, you believe the 27, 28 fundamentals and you get baptized and
not all
that's
about
it
that,
and you've
yeah.
ticked a box. No, I think it's about relationships,
Yes.
you know. And along the way, we've had our own trials and our own difficulties.
And we've done a lot of growing ourselves.
For sure.
Because we always think, oh, we are going to be a mission, you're going to serve them. But no way.
They're serving us because they're showing us our weaknesses.
All the
We may
time.
speak about them, but actually they're ministering to us in different ways because
Yeah.
we're realizing our shortcomings as well.
That's how I feel having a son.
Yes.
It's,
I can understand
wow,
that.
he's teaching me so much patience and
Yeah. These are the
sorry.
fruits of the Spirit. It's the
Correct.
Spirit within us that has to do it.
And sometimes we feel that we want to see that instantaneous conversion, that you
Yeah.
want to convince someone that they need to accept this, but our job is to plant the seeds.
Yes.
It's the job of the Holy Spirit to convict their hearts and to lead them to the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you were then heading to
Tanzania.
Tanzania.
Yes, we were heading to Tanzania one day. Dana said to me, we were driving from Buckinghamshire back to Wales, and she said, come on, let's phone this number.
Yeah.
You see, our cousin had said to her, you know, I know someone, I was in America, I met this person, she works with orphans, I think this will be good for you.
Yeah.
Why don't you contact her? So when we got back to Wales, Dana decided in the evening,
Yeah.
let me contact this person.
Yes. Yeah. So
what year was this?
This was 2023.
This was last year.
Last year.
Recent.
Yes, this is really recent. So this is, let's think, last August. Let's be more specific. Because things happened rapidly. So last August, beginning of August, must have been end of July, beginning of August, I rang the number, and this particular lady, I think we can say that it's Restore a Child, Norma Nashid, and she literally asked us, she picked up the phone, to your surprise, and
Ask 2 questions.
I only have 2 questions for you, and I'm thinking, okay, I have about 100. But anyway, you can ask me your 2 questions. Are you Adventist? Yes, we are Seventh-day Adventists. Okay, that ticked her box. And how old are you? Well, we
Gave her age.
we gave our ages.
And she said, perfect.
Perfect. Yes, she said perfect. See you next year. And I thought, oh, okay. Let's slow down a bit here. I need a bit more information. I got all these questions. And she was, she said, I've actually got 2 places for you. And I don't think she had 2 places. She only really had 1. She said, I've got 2 places for you in Africa. And I thought, Africa. Now, I wanted to go to Africa since my 40s, and we ended up in Cambodia. So I was like, I'm going to get there. And she said, I've got 1 place which is like a holiday resort, and the other place needs support. And I humanly say, yes, we've never been to Africa. The holiday resort sounds great.
Of course.
Because we need to get to know the culture and, climatise a little bit. We've been in England and Wales a while.
Was that
and,
God's plan, though?
I'm still of the easy option. Don't get me wrong. We are still humans. And then she said, no, I think you need to go to this other place. And the team is going to be there in 3 weeks' time, and I think you need to do everything to be there. I was like, okay. And then she started to tell us a bit more information, and then she pinged across the details of a partner that she has in Europe, in Germany. And she said, you contact him, he'll tell you all about it. He's got a team coming, and yes, I will see you next year. She was convicted. And I just went on her faith because I was like, okay, this sounds amazing. This is happening rather fast. And usually I'm up for it, but he's the brakes man. He's the sensible one that will say, slow down, let's think this through logistically, and let's be, methodical. And anyway, so I then said, okay, I'm going to ring this other person. And he was like, now? Yes.
This is even later, and I know that this person's now in Europe,
so
and they will be ahead of us.
Yeah.
So this will be later in the evening.
But I picked up the phone and rang the number, and he said, I'm just emailing you. Sorry, I can't do the German accent. But anyway, and we started to speak on the phone, and I did have, at the back of my mind, I had a checklist, because you need to know big steps like this that God is leading. And I had, in a previous year during COVID, had said, Lord, I've got all this resourcing, all these children's resourcing, all these things I gather along the way for missions, and they don't need it here. So you need to help get this stuff to where it's really needed. And that, to me, was a big thing on a checklist. And it was all packed up ready. That's what was amazing. It was all packed up in boxes, all ready to go. And I told this to him, and he said, that's fine. We are planning a shipment for a medical centre in November. And I was like, really? You really gonna? And he said, yes. So that to me was my box ticked. But the other box was Les. You've got to convince Les. And we've got to be on the same page because, we're married. We need to go together. And that's a big thing. And when we went to Cambodia, God had spoken to us independently. And that one morning, we both knew we had to go. And I was looking for that this time round. Partway through this conversation, Les says, stop. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, what's happening here? And he says, I know you. And it's like, oh, okay. So he takes over the conversation because you can see I can easily monopolise. And he takes over.
So I started to explain to him, we met in 2005. We met in this setting. This is what happened. These were the circumstances. And he said, I remember you. I remember you, and I remember thinking to myself, we can trust this man.
Yeah.
And so I had a piece about it. This is, how can this be?
Yeah.
And so we decided within weeks to pack everything up and to go to Tanzania just on a small mission trip.
Yeah.
But when we went there, it became, something that we were going to do the following year because they were going to invite us back to.
And it was amazing.
And we had gone with this in mind, maybe we'll end up being there, but we wasn't sure what would happen. But that is actually what happened. We went to Tanzania in August of 2023. We were able to spend 2 weeks by ourselves there after he had left because we met him and met a group there. And then we were able to sort of get a feel of the work that needed to be done there. And we saw it was vast.
Yeah.
And we were needed there. And then in the following year, January of 2024, this year, we left for Tanzania. And we've been there up until a few weeks ago when we came here to be with you all in South Africa.
Yeah.
And was there any interesting stories that happened with the Maasai people?
And how was it different to Cambodia?
Completely.
Your challenges?
Well, the people actually lived in mud huts. The people were still living in very much their traditional cultural way of living for centuries.
Yeah.
Not just a few years, for centuries. And so we recognize that we have an opportunity here that we wouldn't have again, because these Maasai people are nomads. And they would usually be roaming, but because the government has specified to them they have to settle in one place, and that the children need to go to school and have an education, we had a window of opportunity to be able to minister to them in this transition, that they were going through. So now we were able to meet them where they were in their, what they call bombers. Little mud huts, so you may have 5, 6 mud huts together, but the one family would be living there, a husband with maybe 3, 4 wives or whatever, or, would be living in what they called a bomber. So we were able then to start ministering to them in their own setting.
Yeah. And this was straight out of a mission magazine from when I was 8, 9 years old. A mud hut, thatched roof, no window, one door, no chimney.
Wow.
And I would be saying, this is pre-creation.
Yeah.
Because, first few days of creation, you've got water and light and air and the basics. And that is just the indication of the health needs that they have. And no sanitation. It reminds me of the days we had in the tents.
Yeah.
They have no sanitation, but they have no water. They haven't got the basics of life. And then they have this intense heat in the day, and we're in the shadow of the mountains, and it's cold at night. So they've got almost all these weather elements around them, where it's cold, where it's chilly, where it rains, where it's dry, it's hot. And then they have the wild animals that, we all as Westerners say, oh, wow, these animals are amazing, but actually they're quite a threat. If you're in a hut, and, you need the warriors, in effect, to protect and so on. So completely different world.
I mean, was this due to government, lack of government support, or was this because of their own doing?
This is the way they want to live.
That's where they want to live, nomads.
This is the way they want to live. And gradually, slowly, things are changing because their children are going to school, and that's one of the reasons we went, because we have one of the first Maasai mission schools in the whole of Tanzania. So they're just Maasai children that are being taught in the school. And so that's one avenue, but also the medical needs are so great there. And the thing is that they are nervous about medicines, and so because we had come using natural remedies and different things like that, they took to us, and we took to them, because we saw miracles in this way, where simple treatments we gave to them will work wonders, and we think, God is amazing.
Yes.
We didn't expect them to be these remedies to be so effective on them.
So quickly.
So quickly.
Yes. And I mean, you've asked for sort of miracle stories. We've had miracle stories where we are. We really have. I mean, I had a friend of a sponsor, and she had this huge cancer. Huge cancer. Their diet has been, and still is to a degree, very much meat, blood and milk. Because as you can imagine, they have their livestock, they're keepers of animals, so that's where their food has come from. And to a degree, it's still their first call. After a mother has had her baby, she has warm blood. And, and the meat isn't always cooked very well. They don't have the methods we have in treating worms in the animals, so worms are prevalent amongst the land, the animals, the children, everyone. It's there. And with the climate, there's a lot of fungal infection, and a lot of disease starts from fungal infection. But this particular lady had this huge cancer, full, I hope your listeners don't have weak stomachs, I try not to be too descriptive, full of larvae, and so on.
Wow.
And she had some of it removed, but they couldn't keep her where they were. We took her to the bigger hospital, and I was seriously praying, because I was saying, Lord, this is too big for me. I am one person. I really cannot take this on. And I was really having this sort of deep discussion with the Lord. I am denying, I don't want this. I can't deal with this. But we took her to the government hospital. They explained the situation, but having a medical background, I knew she was going to lose her leg. She could even lose her life. While she was there, she had other sores in other parts of her body. She was going back to a mud hut. And through a long story short, we managed to negotiate that she spends the night there. But I could not sleep that night. I had the conviction, no way, I cannot leave this lady to die. I cannot let her have this operation of which she would then die. We have to take her back. We have to take her back. God opened the doors, we took her back to where we were. And I mean, this is how faith and natural treatments work. We were literally using charcoal. We were using potato, grated potato. We were using ginger and cassava flour. My tablets were in the form of papaya seeds, which kill worms, pumpkin seeds, and clove. She would have some of those 3 times a day, and I would be treating this huge wound, which she smelt like death. She was rotting. It was bad. And I've got all these progressive photographs on my phone, but God worked from March to the end of April, and I watched that thing clean up.
Nice.
Wow.
I watched the healthy skin come back. She was on a plant-based diet. She ate like a horse. And I don't mean a literal horse. She ate masses.
I think she loved it because
she loved it. Yeah, she did.
wow. she was known. She was determined.
She was very
And
determined.
not all the Maasai are like her.
Yeah.
But she was determined. She was going to stay off the milk. She was
Yes.
going to stay off the meat,
Yeah.
and she wasn't going to touch blood.
No. She stayed off everything.
That was.
Wow.
She had made up her mind that
Yes.
she was going to do that,
Yeah.
and we then
Yeah.
put her on vegetables, avocados.
Yes, healthy fats and
healthy fats. Of course, we fed her rice and
And,
potatoes
yes.
and
And
different
it had
things
good
like that.
results.
wider
But
diet.
lots of fruits
Yes.
as well.
And food that she had never eaten before in her
So
life.
she loved this.
She loved it.
this. So we would give her 3 meals a
A
day,
day.
which with the Maasai people, they would have a meal,
And that may be it.
that may be it, or 2 meals, but they're spread out far from each other.
They're not
Yeah.
big eaters.
They're not big eaters. So to have these 3 meals a day,
Yeah.
she just loved these 3 meals. Every day we were cooking for her, every day Diana was dressing her wound. Every day this was just healing
It
up.
was amazing.
It was amazing to see the transformation. You wouldn't believe that she was the same lady. Yeah?
She was changing. And the wound just closed up.
Yes, but she came and spent a little time with us, but then we took her back to her own village.
Yes.
And while we were there in her village, we were treating her and then started to treat others from her village who also were not well. And the amazing thing is it ended up that they started to treat one another
Yes.
because we were making all these natural remedies with just potato, charcoal, ginger, etc., garlic,
That they
etc.,
could use and get.
lemons, and they can get these things, and they started to treat one another and help one another.
Yes.
And this was amazing to see this.
Yes.
It was a complete transformation,
This lady now is holding a grandson.
which she would never have seen.
No, she would never have seen. Her son is volunteering in one of our preschools, because we have many preschools and a primary school for the Maasai. And the group of women that we had taught to do some of these treatments, we had another cancer lady that was there who had a cancer growing from the age of 2. It came off, it closed up. She's got hair growing there. Her hair has regrown in that area.
She hadn't had hair on there
From age
the
2.
age 2.
Yeah, the cancer had grown. So that has healed up. And this is not us. This is God. This is their faith. And I then, for at least 2 months afterwards, had all these photographs that were coming through every single day of their neighbours children that had moulds in their heads, on sores on legs. They were just sending me pictures, telling me what they're doing, and I just watched the progress. And they were treating each other. And it's like, wow, this is just multiplied overnight. And until it came to the point where they stopped sending photographs. And I thought, okay, if they know what to do, they know where we are, they know they're independent.
This gave us hope.
Yeah. It shows, it's such a lovely testimony as to the right arm of the gospel being the health message.
Yes.
And through that, we're reaching other people. They might not even have been open to listening to you guys if this wasn't the route that they saw healed them.
Yes.
God healed them.
God healed them.
Wow.
So in the meantime, while we were there in that village, one of the elders from a different church was coming to that village, and the lady with the cancer on her head,
she got baptized.
She started to have Bible studies with the elder, and she ended up wanting to be baptized.
And she's got 8 children.
Wow.
And she's one of, I don't know how many wives, but she has 8 children, and her children were coming with her. One was actually, she was carrying on her back, and then she had a number of others, and they were starting to come to church too.
Done a lot in the last, year?
But
eh?
I can't,
Wow.
there's so much that has happened.
Yes.
There's actually a lot that has happened since we've been there.
And I think really this is all about the character of God.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this is what it's about. Because I remember in Cambodia, I had these discussions with the Lord. Well, what then, we had done our medical missionary training, but even after that, when I saw the reality for myself, how many people are sick, they're trapped in heathenism, and the enemy is really holding them fast.
Oh, yeah.
But I would say to God on the medical side, medicine is not just for the wealthy. Medicine is not just for those that have money in poor countries. Medicine, Lord, who are you? How can we say you're a loving God if all these people are sick and there's no way and method for them to recover? And it really came home very deeply within me that, no, this is not the character of God. The character of God is that everybody has access to salvation. Jesus died for every tribe, people, tongue and nation.
If only they
Everybody.
if only they accept it.
Yes. And health is for everybody.
Yeah.
And we have learned, now here we are in this beautiful setting. You have just opened your Verity Centre. You're having your first School of the Prophets.
Correct.
And you actually have all been our family. You didn't even know it.
Yeah.
You have been our family. Your dad and Martin have been our family through years of watching WhatsApp. Well, not years of WhatsApp proper because it came in the COVID. But prior to that, your dad's research was, he had the opportunity to do all the research and to show that we have been blessed with inspired messages that tell us what is coming and how we are to treat this world that's going to be one vast hospital, the faith that we need, the righteousness by faith, which is what the Protestant message is really all about. And every one of us, we just got to believe, and he does everything else. He even gives us that belief. We are right here, and we have been privileged to be here and to be part of Verity, because we've come here to have a rest, have a bit of a recover, to to be able to equip ourselves to return. And we have been equipped in every area, because we've been in the School of the Prophets, we've been with Verity, and God is going to bless this ministry abundantly, and we are privileged to have been here with you.
And it's been really nice having you here, and God uses different streams of reaching people with the gospel, and your mission work has been vital, just as Walter, and what we do, I guess, is also important to reach a different audience. Your work has been amazing, and I'm really glad, to have you guys here and to hear your story. It's been really amazing.
And like you said in the beginning, we are called to be missionaries, every single one of us. So irrespective if it's a big thing that you're doing, going to a different country, or just ministering in your own town, every single moment, every single opportunity we need to use to spread the word, to restore the character of God that has been tainted in this world.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you guys had any closing remarks as to the people out there, people who would like to be missionaries.
Advice.
Advice. Is it worth it to go out?
Well, you know, we didn't realize until a few years ago that so many foreign fields out there lack missionaries. There is a shortage of people who are willing to leave the comfort of their homes and actually go and minister among the people. And it can be trying, and it is trying.
Yes.
I won't fool you. It won't, you will come to difficulties because you grow up in a different culture. You're feeling different.
Yeah.
And things are different. But when you're trying to reach other people, you find a way. God will speak to you and you'll find a way to be able to minister to somebody. And they do see that God is working in you to be able to show his character and to be able to share love.
Yeah.
And I believe that God is willing to do that for anybody who's willing to step out in faith.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
In faith. Faith
Yes.
is the key word there.
And we have the opportunities too, because we have been so blessed. We didn't have to build up the infrastructure of where we are now. We've walked into it and thought, wow, thank you, Lord. We're not as young as we used to be. But where we are, there is a guest house. And I think that would be like an ideal first step. If there's anybody young or old, whatever stage you're at, and you would like to have a taste of missionary service, it could be anything from, I'd like to work with some children. We have a primary school there. You may say, oh, I can only garden. Please come water our gardens. We will be most pleased for you to come and do that. Or you just want to just help in some way. You like cooking, or you just want to serve in some way. We have a guest house there. We would welcome you and support you through that experience.
Great.
And don't be afraid to take that step. You're not gonna. God's not going to throw you in the deep end, though it does feel like it sometimes. It does cost us, but then it costs Jesus.
Yeah.
And when you
Definitely.
think about what it cost Jesus to leave heaven while we were still enemies and do what he did for us, then nothing is too hard. Nothing is too hard. So I just want to encourage you. We are not superheroes.
No.
We are not bulletproof or fireproof.
But you said yes.
But
Yes.
we
I'll
said
go.
yes.
Yeah. And I think that's it. You just have to be willing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just be willing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be a short period of time.
Yeah, if we are willing, God equips us.
Yes.
We do not have to have a university degree
No.
to tell someone about Jesus.
No.
It is just being willing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just before we pray, I would like to read 2 quotes for us.
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
We should work as did our divine teacher, sowing the seeds of truth with care, anxiety, and self-denial. We must have the mind of Christ if we would not become weary in well-doing. His was a life of continual sacrifice for others' good. We must follow his example. The seed of truth we must sow, and trust in God to quicken it to life. The precious seed may lay dormant for some time when the grace of God may convict the heart, and the seed sown be awakened to life, and spring up and bear fruit to the glory of God. Missionaries in this great work are wanted to labor unselfishly, earnestly, and perseveringly, as co-workers with Christ and the heavenly angels in the salvation of their fellow men. And then just the last one out of the great controversy. The Spirit of Christ is a missionary spirit. The very first impulse of the renewed heart is to bring others also to the Savior.
How did you know it's going to fit in so well with the story?
I didn't. We serve an amazing God, and this earth is but a short period of our lives. And to suffer a bit without luxuries on this earth, to spend an eternity with them will be more than worth it.
You need to realize that. Yeah. Will you end off with prayer for us, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Let's just bow our heads. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for the opportunity to be able to minister and to serve and to reach others. We thank you that you did this for us and that you love each and every one of us. We're asking that you'll help us to be willing to allow you to work in our hearts, to bring the gospel, to bring hope, to bring salvation, to bring healing to others. We thank you for this time we were able to share together. May your name be honored and glorified through all of this. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.